Good morning. I'd like to call the regular meeting for the Economic Development Authority for the City of Poquoson to order. Charity, if we can begin by having a roll call, please.
Director Freeman is not here. Director Yanello.
Yo.
Director Joyce. Here. Director Derby is not here. Director Fay is not here. Vice Chairman Metz. Here. And Chairman Booth.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Charity. This morning we have two items on our consent agenda. First being approval of the minutes from our November 10th meeting 2021, as well as our current financial statements. Any discussion needed on the consent agenda items?
Motion we approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion by Mr. Yanello. Is there a second? Have a second by Alan.
Alan, thank you.
We can call that for a vote, please.
Director Yanello.
Yes.
Director Joyce.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Metz. And Chairman Booth.
Aye. Thank you, Charity. This morning we begin with public comment. At this point, I don't see anyone for public comment. As a matter of new business, would like to officially welcome Kara Joyce to the EDA. Thank you for stepping up and volunteering.
Look forward to it.
Thank you. We also have one other new introduction. Lee Etheridge joins us as the new city's finance director. Been on board now a few weeks, maybe, at this point?
Over a month, yes, sir. Yes.
Wonderful. Lee is a native of Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. Comes to us with a degree in accounting from UNC Wilmington and an MBA from the University of Phoenix. Past having served for the City of Roanoke Rapids, Northampton County, and Halifax County Department of Social Services. So, welcome to the city.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Wonderful. So we quickly bring Lee into the fold and ask her to assist us with a presentation of our budget, which will be considered at our April meeting for voting. And each of you should have received a draft copy of the proposed budget. And if there's any summaries you would like to make to that? And with this, in the past, the EDA request has flown through the Poquoson EDA for funding. That line item is included as well.
Yes, that is the transfer in for the use at the $21,000 coming from the general fund there for HR.
And I do have a copy of the letter, if anyone would like to see the letter from HREDA requesting funds. And it does state there, I believe it's for this year, that the amount from Poquoson would be $14,111.
Yes, and you'll see that reflected in the operating expense line. And then we have additional there to assist you with meeting expenses. You just have to let us know what you would like to spend on that committed amount.
And at this point, we've got a couple of bond fees that remain from past loan issuances or bond issuances, as well as a little bit of maintenance. So any questions of Lee specific at this time? We're not taking action on this today. This is to kind of prepare us for April's meeting where
Probably more for charity, but the HRED, seems like we talked about this last year. What does that do? What is our decision to say we want to keep it going?
The hope is that next meeting, we will vote for the new budget and HREDA being part of that. So both items.
It'll be for the new fiscal year.
yeah, won't be
beginning
able to
July
authorize
1st.
it until July.
So the way that will roll out, hopefully, as Charity pointed out, will be that the authority will take action in consideration of that. If that moves forward, then council will look to adopt the budget. Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, but mid-May, I believe, is the target for the adoption.
Yes, that is correct.
Have we received any action from them over the last year as far as leads or bills or things?
They have, they continue to include us with with everything that they provide to all of the localities. I will say, they continue to be very responsive to Charity and I from a staff perspective, and they have been providing us with a number of second-level statistics that we wouldn't normally have access to, that helps us as we market property in the city. So I think they've been, from staff's point of view, I would respectfully say a good partner for us. They continue to support us any way that we require of them and ask of them. I know that they would love to land a project in Poquoson and continue to be vigilant about trying to identify those opportunities for us.
Unfortunately, Poquoson, we don't have the big sites and things that tend to be the types of things that the regional and state economic development people go after. But whenever there's something that could remotely be a fit, they certainly will work with us and, try to present that.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the fundamental thing. We don't have sites for, industrial and office warehouse and that. We have basically one retail site. I don't know how much that's even on their radar to find a retail, which is kind of find their own sites. So I've always questioned the value. Now, if you're getting staff level value, helping you market from your point of view, I don't even know that. I just don't know that they're ever going to be the feeder to bring us 7 acre regional. Not their thing.
I'll tell you my feeling about it. First of all, it's the interaction with them. They're very knowledgeable and about many things that we can go to them and have resistance. But for the money, the big thing to me is that if we're not involved with some of these groups, even with state groups, then we basically don't exist. So sometimes we have to participate and pay into membership to some of these things. Our name is in the book and people recognize that Poquoson is here.
I think at the staff level, you're getting a lot of the economic data and the financial drivers,
Absolutely.
at least regionally and from a rooftop and some of those from a market analysis. Otherwise, based on city resources, wouldn't have access to. So I know that that's a tool that's been leveraged.
Absolutely true. Esri, and they have, they buy into all of those good databases, and they have really capable people that can pull the relevant information for us. So.
Very responsive to us.
Any other questions on the draft budget at this time? Hearing none, then, we can move to the next item. As many of you are aware, Chief Bowen did need to step down off of EDA due to a work commitment that he's now responsible for. As such, we find ourselves without a treasurer. April month, the April meeting is our annual meeting with which elections do occur. However, for the next 30-day period, plus or minus, we do need to temporarily name an interim treasurer. So I'm looking for a volunteer who may help fill that seat for the next month. Have official appointment and elections for that.
Anybody who has accounting experience?
My wife.
If you show me what to do, I can do it. Having experience, we can do that.
Well, that
It'll
would
work
be
perfect.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, Lee, but our finance director will provide you any assistance that you need, I'm quite sure. Thank you, Lee. Thank you.
Questions, please call, and since I'm getting my sea legs, as they say, here with our processes, any questions, I'll find the answer for you. I'll work with management staff.
That sounds
Thank you, Kara.
Or any kind of, just an appointment?
An appointment at this point pending the official elections that do happen with our April annual meeting. So unfinished business, back in November, we kind of put forth a charge to look at the ARPA grant funds and potential uses for the development of the ARPA grant. I know that the committee has been actively working to put together some opportunities that may exist connected to those funds and how we can get that money into the hands of local businesses. And at this point, Dave, are you going to take the initial lead or Charity?
I would briefly introduce it, if I may, Mr. Chairman, and to let you know that Charity has put in a significant, extraordinary effort working with our committee of volunteers, which include Director Yanello and Director Fye, and others. And I believe that, and Charity will speak to it specifically, but I believe they've come up with a very good document that stays in lockstep with the requirements of the ARPA guidelines for approval of projects. So I'll pass it to Charity now and ask for her comments, and of course, Director Yanello's.
Well, documents were sent out, if you were able to have a minute to review them, and I also out copies, physical copies, so you could look at it now. But what we're trying to do is figure out what to do, how best to support the business community with the $200,000 that's been allocated for it. And the previous grants were basically rent reimbursement, which has already been pretty well tapped. We're trying to look for other ways to benefit the community and the businesses. So, and also to meet the intent of the grant, because it's a federal grant, it has a different feel to what they're trying to accomplish. And the overview, it's just a simple two-pager, went through what that was about and what we were considering. I mean, they looked at things for employment, which is obviously a problem for all businesses right now, impacted industries that they thought were most hard hit by the pandemic. They referenced startups, they referenced childcare. These are all issues that they're trying to address. And another thing was facility improvements, which we believe that outdoor dining or enlarging space or improving air conditioning all contributed to reducing the impact of the pandemic and improving their business, so we fund that. So those are some of the things that the committee was looking at, and so we tailored the application to previous applications that we've had experience with to try and make it so that it enabled people to come up with answer solutions that were relevant to their business, not just in general. So that's what we've produced here. It's a work in progress. This will never be a final document. After the EDA approves it, there could still be some tweaks, and also it will need to be submitted to the consultant who will give their stamp of approval that it meets the federal guidelines. So the city did hire somebody for that purpose because it's very, there's documents and documents and pages of hard to understand government, federal government information. So I guess the steps that we're at now is we have a draft document. We'd like everyone's buy-in and support and comments and considerations on this document, which and then we'd like to be able to submit it to the consultant. Is that what you feel, Dave, also? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Charity. I know that you're very desirous of having the EDA's input. Council, of course, provided the funding for the EDA's consideration and disbursement, and as the chairman said, staff has been provided the opportunity to form that committee, and they put together a pretty good document here. So I note that one of the dates on here is that we'll start accepting applications beginning April 1st. Of course, that is dependent upon how quickly the consultants review it and get it back to us so we can tweak it. Certainly, we'd love to start doing it on the 21st, but there is a sunset date on it as well, of December of this year. But I believe that can be tweaked as well if needed. I think so, but I don't want to speak out of turn. But I think that's pretty
Funds
good.
don't have to be expended by then for the federal government, but what we would like to see is we would like to start this program as soon as we can, get applications out, and we'd like to have the funds spent this year if it's possible. I don't want to put a close date on it, but maybe, I mean, maybe if there's funds left over, we can find another use that will benefit the businesses and the city in general. Funds, I mean, that's up to the EDA and the committee. Not really sure if it requires an action, if we have to adopt anything or not. Should we
No,
have
I
a
think
vote?
I think we just asked for you guys to come back to the EDA in order to kind of discuss the evolution of how this is not another rent reimbursement program and what some of those opportunities were. And so I certainly have some information here. I certainly like the fact that the dollar value has kind of been elevated from the previous version of the quick money that was rolled out kind of immediately as the impacts were being felt and it was made available. The employment piece, it sounds like, is maintaining employment doesn't have to show a generator of new employment connected with it. Is that correct, or?
I think the intent has been that, just like all companies, as you mentioned, are having a hard time finding staff at this time. If there's any way that funding could help them find additional staff, then that would be a consideration, because it's a problem for businesses right now.
And I know that a number of businesses did have to kind of pivot and shift in their operations, whether it was the outdoor dining example up, there was physical costs that went into the ability to do that, or through shift into online or other kind of capital improvements to reopen operations within the real positive to be able to acknowledge those shifts did occur and potentially help those businesses to
Because there's various reasons that they would qualify. But this is the application in its entirety, correct?
Well, there should be a number of pages. The first page is an overview. As it gets back, it says City of Poquoson Economic Development Authority, ARPA grant, and has all the little fill-in-the-blank lines.
Right, so I guess what I'm trying to say is if a business is applying, fill all this out, this application doesn't really highlight that, hey, explain how you're impacted and why you're asking for this money, or do they read the sheet with all the reasons the first few pages?
Are all the pages?
The only thing on here is at the very end, it says relevant information which you feel will assist.
I think it's based on
So
this
they
cover
get
sheet.
that
Yeah.
too, and therefore they have to connect the dot, that
Correct.
I'm not just asking for this to put in my pocket, I'm supposed to explain that I need more money for wages, or I have to do the outdoor. So they're getting these first two pages, and, okay.
That's my understanding, and
I'm wondering if, in copying this, if all the pages out there, is there a sheet in your packet that says American Rescue Plan, fact sheet?
Yeah,
Okay.
fact sheet.
So the fact sheet would be a top page to go with the application, so that it would detail a little bit about, some of these different options that they would.
Yeah, I was thinking if they just had this,
Oh, yeah.
they're just sort of filling the blanks, hey, let's see what happens, but I guess it's up to them to connect that, hey, this isn't just free money for no reason, I'm supposed to explain.
Well, that's exactly right. There's a section that says use of grant funds, be specific, and attach additional sheets if necessary. And I believe that's what the committee was getting at when they're asking them to provide in detail, what are you using the funding for? So that then proper evaluation.
I don't think we have
Yeah,
those
well,
sheets.
what is that?
The backsides, I don't think.
Oh,
are copied.
sorry. Well, you take mine.
Okay.
We'll pass it around.
Hopefully it was emailed
That's
to
the
you.
missing sheet that
I'm sorry.
Well,
I grabbed
Chairman,
those
for
sheets
you?
that I had and made
y'all are
copies
like,
of
what
it.
is he talking about?
they're like, what does Dave know?
The
What is he
backside.
saying?
I do believe the one that was emailed to you should have everything.
Yeah, okay, well,
If not, I will send a
no, that's fine.
follow-up
That's-
email.
That covers it, we're good.
Well, I'd like everyone to have all the pieces, because I would appreciate any input that you might have. I mean, if you feel that we've missed something, or you feel something, additional suggestion how to handle this, because it's unique to anything that we've done. And we've had some great experience with handing grants out for our small businesses, but this is going to be different, and so I'm very open. The committee's very open to suggestions.
And I think part of the value in the open-endedness as this rolls out to the businesses, to the amount that we're allowed to by the federal guidelines, it kind of allows a business who maybe doesn't fit in the normal box of a restaurant or whatever they may be, who truly has felt an impact, to potentially come back with some portion of a request that maybe hasn't rolled into the normal in-the-box ideas.
Absolutely.
And, we kind of know the ingenuity is in the small businesses, entrepreneurs who have kind of bridged the last 2 years. And
Exactly.
so I think there's an opportunity there for those non-conventional,
Or even
Inside the box ones.
non-conventional needs of a regular business. I
Yep.
mean,
Well, I think as you mentioned previously when we had a discussion about it, Mr. Chairman, the previous grants we've been working with, and we've been very successful, as Charity referenced, those were grants to reimburse rent and costs that they had already incurred regarding the impacts of COVID. This grant, in my opinion, and I think yours as well, is a path forward. Now that you're moving forward, what kinds of things will you do to address and mitigate in the future? So if you have projects like outdoor dining or an HVAC system that increases filtration, things of that nature, those would things I believe the committee would consider and recommend.
and I do believe it will go back a little bit for somebody who was, put some outdoor dining together and have spent money already in the fairly recent, I don't believe it goes all the way back to March 2020 or something, but it goes back a little ways, that you could use those funds and continue to. But a lot of that is, to me, we need the final approval from the consultants for that, so.
so if I understand the pathway forward, kind of based on our discussion this morning, unless there's any opposition to anything that's been identified here, you and the committee will take that forward to the consultant for their review, as well as any kind of legal input that they may have connected to the applicability of the grant to cover those things. And then it will be pushed out into the business community through the current network.
For the
Economic Development Office
application,
has.
the application process, yes.
Yep.
Sir, one of the things that we had discussed, and the reason for trying to get the money spent early, is there's a limit on how much we're going to provide to these businesses. But one of the things we had talked about, correct me if I'm wrong, probably true, is if we don't spend all the money, that we can go back to those other businesses that did apply and hit the limit so that we can then disperse additional funds to them. So if, business A wants $20,000 and we put a limit of 15, but we don't spend it all, we want to get them that other 5,000 before we run out of time. But, I don't think that'll happen, but that was one option. The other thing was, do we know what the impact of fuel costs are going to be on these businesses? This morning, they were talking about just for the average family, that it's $3,000 for the additional fuel cost, $2,000 for the fuel, and $1,000 it's going to come with the additional cost for groceries. And so I'm not sure if that impacts any of our businesses, but would something like that qualify, especially if you're talking about lawn and garden or places that depend heavily on transportation?
And even indirectly, food costs are going to go up because delivery costs are going to go up, so.
I would love to be able to give every family $3,000 if it goes, but we don't have that kind of money.
Right.
But I don't know, because we never considered that, because I don't think anybody really had that crystal ball to say, gee, it's going to cost up to 7 or 8% more money this year to handle the regular business.
I think on behalf of staff at the EDA's direction, we'll be happy to ask that question of our consultants, because that is very timely, very recent, what's been happening.
Yeah. The price of gasoline yesterday morning at our 7-Eleven was $4.09. When I came home from work, it was $4.19. And then when I left to take my granddaughter to dance, it was $4.29. It's like.
In one day.
In one day, and it's like, I think there's some price gouging personally, but that's irrelevant. It's just phenomenal. Even Kroger was at $4.29 yesterday. It was crazy. Lower ones. So I know it's going to impact our businesses, especially lawn and garden and places that depend heavily on transportation.
I don't know, it was not mentioned in anything
Right,
either.
I know.
Like you said, who would know, not even federal documents, so it might be something that, some category that it fits into. So again, we may have to refer to that consultant to
If it's within
ourselves that we're within
the guidelines, okay.
the guidelines, right?
It's not so much what has happened when the pandemic was really crushing everything. It can still be current. I'm a little confused whether this is directly pandemic related or whether it's.
But as Dave said, it's trying to make improvements toward the future. So you have to show that you were impacted. There was a requirement in this one for that, negatively impacted by the pandemic, and then this is sort of a way forward. Outdoor dining.
Like Ray's point, the fuel thing, you have to look back and say, this is what, that's sort of a forward thing. I'm just confused whether it's, a year ago, we had to do this, that, and the other versus what we're talking about is,
In that instance, probably does not qualify, but, as Brady will tell you, I'm not the expert.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Well, that's a really good
There's a
question.
lot.
And that's
Right.
one of
There's a lot
the
in there, I
reasons,
know.
I think that's one of the reasons that I think the city made a prudent move in engaging a consultant. Because in my opinion, I think the grant funding is wonderful. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to continue to support the business community. But some of this could be viewed as subjective decisions. And that's why you bring, I believe, consultants who have a real handle. This is their field, their expertise, and they will, I believe, keep us in good alignment with, what's required. But those are the kinds of questions Ray is asking that are very relevant, particularly given our recent change in economic circumstances with fuel and food and things of that nature.
Agreed. Thank you guys for your commitment to doing this, and we certainly look forward to kind of hear the live rollout of this and see the effects it has on the business community. So, thank you guys.
Money does come through the EDA, and so for that reason, I encourage you to look through it and give input that you have, or talk to Ray or Cap on the committee, whatever you'd like to do, but all input is appreciated.
She's begging.
Absolutely.
It's a unique bird here, so.
Anything else on the ARPA grant at this time? Hearing none, staff activities, anything to report, Dave or Charity from around town?
I will speak to the current Farm Fresh preparations, and then I'll ask Charity, if she will, to discuss the success of our restaurant week, which just concluded on Sunday. What we understand on very good authority that Farm Fresh is moving in great fashion as far as their preparations. The latest we've heard, not a specific April opening date, but we're hopeful that they will be open in April. And I know the community is very excited, and we've spoken with Farm Fresh executive leadership and their new store managers, and they're quite frankly tickled to death to be here, and look forward to serving the community. And obviously, we can't wait to get the big scissors and ribbon out and help them with that ribbon cutting. So
I do know that they've offered the opportunity for, let me make sure I get the right organization, Lions Club members to have a tour of the facility before they open up. So I know they're offering that up to other community service organizations.
And
they
that's
have
wonderful.
gone in and talked to some of them. But they're
Okay.
hard to get a hold of too, so.
Farm Fresh and of course, everybody knows that CVS was, so we've got that new business. And Restaurant Week is not the restaurant week that is offered in many other communities, but instead, we look at it as, this is an opportunity for the city to support our restaurants. So with that in mind, we had the umbrella that was offered. If anybody went to 3 restaurants during Restaurant Week and got receipts totaling more than $50, they could come in and receive it. Poquoson is the place umbrella, which is a very nice item. And if you have those receipts and haven't, there's a few left, so we definitely want to do that.
I wanted another soup bowl, so I didn't.
Every Christmas, that's our Christmas.
we can probably dig up a soup bowl, Director Yanello, if you have those receipts.
So, but the restaurant, the restaurants very much enjoyed. In fact, Public Works obtained some cooler bags with the silver linings that help keep things hot or cold. So we, through Public Works, provided those to the restaurants to send off to-go orders with the, and people were coming in asking about those if they ran out. And so we had a lot of things going on with it. I think it was very successful. The restaurants appreciated the city's support, and from the results that I've had from the restaurants I've spoken with, it was successful.
Wonderful news, wonderful news. As mentioned earlier, our annual meeting is scheduled for next month, April 5th, back here, Chamber, and that'll be our board elections as well as our final review of the budget. Approval as the EDA for the ask to City Council. So, final comments?
Question, do we have any movement on the property on Victory Boulevard? I have not heard anything since, like, I think it was September, even November meeting. Dave?
As far as the LOI, the chairman certainly can, I can tell you that the LOI is still in existence. In fact, I had a phone call that I've since returned. I'm waiting to hear back from one of their representatives as far as where they are in the due diligence phase. I don't believe they've completed it, but I would defer to the chairman. His thoughts where the process is as well.
And per conversations that happened prior to the holidays, things were moving much slower than they had anticipated. But the LOI is still there, but no movement to speak of that's seen.
I don't know what the impact of the Farm Fresh opening is going to have on it either. Okay. I was just curious. I hadn't heard anything, so you know how rumors are too, so we've talked about those.
If there's nothing else of value, then we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Now,